Are the Atlanta Braves actually gearing up to spend big this offseason? And could they make some trades at this year's deadline to give them some more money to spend in the offseason? I'll answer those questions and many more on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at shortstopball. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and you're watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below as it helps us out a ton on the YouTube side of things and brings others here to the Locked On Braves community. And if you're on the audio side, where most of our listeners still are, thank you so much as well. You can help support the show by leaving a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Big shout out to my everydayers out there. Really appreciate all your support here at Locked On Braves. Today's episode is our weekly mailbag episode. Got a lot of questions to get to per usual, and you do a great job sending in questions. Right now we have 25 questions that we're going to get to. A lot of them have to do with trading Marcell Ozuna. What can you get for Ozuna? Are the Braves gearing up to spend big this offseason? Who would you buy this offseason? A lot of questions around that, but I'll try to get to all of them on today's episode, which is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel, right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. Let's jump into the questions right away. First one coming up from America47. What's a realistic trade for Sean Murphy and Ozuna in a trade package? So, two very different players, in my opinion. One is obviously a DH-only rental, and we'll talk more about this for some other questions. I just don't know that you're going to get much there. Sean Murphy is a very valuable catcher on not a terrible deal. Now, certainly you're paying him $15 million. You want him to be, one of the top catchers in baseball. And I think he can be that when healthy and when playing regularly. So the price for Sean Murphy is pretty high. I just don't see a package of them together. But I think even packaged together, I think you're getting your value from Sean Murphy in that deal. And I think it should be pretty high value. I think you should be looking at a team's top 5 prospect and possibly somebody even a top 100 type of prospect. And that's just more so for me personally. I'm not just giving away Sean Murphy because you have Drake Baldwin. I think there's very much value in having two really good catchers, especially if you can use one of them in the DH spot. So I am not at all on board with just trading Sean Murphy for the sake of trading Sean Murphy. I'm only trading him if I'm getting huge value in return. So again, whether it's just Sean Murphy or whether you're pairing Marcell Ozuna with Sean Murphy, I need to get big value back in that deal. Next one from E. Fuentes. For 2026, who would you rather move to the bullpen, Ronaldo Lopez or Grant Holmes? This is a great question here from Fuentes and Everydayer. I would move Ronaldo Lopez to the bullpen. I think there's more upside potentially with Ronaldo Lopez in the rotation, but I also think there's more upside and possibility of Ronaldo Lopez being a dominant reliever, which we've seen. We've seen him be a dominant reliever at the big league level. And I just think Grant Holmes has been more of a steady piece in the rotation, not somebody that's going to give you top of the rotation type of value, but somebody that's a steady middle of the rotation guy. And I just feel like that's very valuable. And I feel like putting Ronaldo Lopez back into the bullpen where hopefully that velo, coming back from injury, we'll see, plays more up to 97, 98, and he can be a dominant setup, maybe even a closer type. So for me, I move Lopez back to the bullpen where I think he can be a just very dominant reliever. And I keep Grant Holmes in the rotation where he's just been very steady for the Atlanta Braves. Colin Moses asked, who do you hope to land in free agency this offseason? There's a couple of questions like this. But look, if money is not an option for me, I'm going and getting Kyle Tucker, I'm getting Bo Bichette, and I'm getting Michael King. Now, there's several other pitchers you can go to. I'm just enamored with Michael King, especially after what he did to us in the postseason. I don't care what lineup you were throwing out there. He was not getting touched that day, and I just think his stuff can be that good. So those are the 3 guys that I'm going after. It's never going to happen for the Atlanta Braves. They get one of those, I would be thrilled and shocked. But again, money not an option. You're just asking me who would I like to land? Who do I hope to land? Those are the 3 that I'm going after. Dan Antler says, shouldn't the Braves consider selling high on Grant Holmes? He's under control for many years, and his value will likely never be higher. I say no, just because, one, I don't know what kind of return. Like you're talking about selling high on Grant Holmes. I get that. I don't think you're getting a top 100 prospect for Grant Holmes. So I think it's much more valuable to just have that depth in the rotation, because whatever your thoughts are on this Braves team right now and the future of it, the Braves plans are to turn around and compete in 2026. And that being the case, you need as many reliable arms as you can get. You've already seen what can happen when you lose a starter or two or three for the Braves, or four: Ronaldo Lopez, AJ Smith-Shawver, Chris Sale, Spencer Schwellenbach. You need as much pitching depth as possible and quality pitching depth. And if you want to turn around and compete in 2026, you need Grant Holmes. So I would say no, partially because I don't think that sell high you're talking about is as high as you probably want it to be. And I think you need to keep guys like Grant Holmes around who can be a quality mid-rotation starter for you. Calvin Finner, with the money coming off the books this offseason, we could possibly see some new extensions after resetting the luxury tax. What would you say the number is for a new Acuna extension? How about Schwellenbach and Drake? So for Acuna, very difficult. And a lot of it may depend on how the rest of the season plays out. But I'm thinking 35 is the minimum, $35 million a year. And, you're probably looking at 8-year deal. So it's a lot of money, and it's probably going to be a big contract. He talked about it with Juan Soto, who got, the massive $700 million deal. As he's a really good hitter, don't get me wrong, but somebody that's probably going to be a DH long-term, probably should be a DH now. And that could very well be the case for Acuna, which I thought maybe would drive his price down. But you look at it with a Juan Soto, who got the big deal that he got, being one of the best hitters in baseball, but probably going to be a DH only in a few years. If that's the same thought with Ronald Acuna Jr., that, hey, he's one of the best hitters in baseball, we know he might be a DH full-time in a few years, but we're okay with that. Some team's going to give him $40 million. And so I think $35 million a year is the minimum, probably over 8 or 9 year stretch. And I don't see the Braves doing that. For Schwellenbach, I can see them, trying a similar route that they went with Spencer Strider. For Drake Baldwin, I could see them doing even a similar deal for Sean Murphy, but I don't think you want to be paying two catchers that much at the same time. So I don't think they would give that extension with Drake unless they traded Sean Murphy. Hayden Harris, would any of the moves the Braves make at this deadline indicate how willing they are going to be to spend this offseason? If so, which moves? So this is another good question from Hayden Harris and Everydayer, because I do think that is something to watch at this deadline. If they were to trade Pierce Johnson, who has control for next year, if they were to trade Aaron Bummer, who they have control of for next year, if they were to trade Joe Jimenez, who they have control of for next year. I know he's injured right now, but teams will sometimes trade at the deadline for injured players that are coming back. Say Joe, get reports that Jimenez could come back as early as August. A team might still be willing to trade for that. The Braves traded for Eddie Rosario while he was injured. He came back and won a MVP in LCS. So it does happen, but those are the players that I would be looking at. Any players that have control beyond this season, if the Braves are looking to trade them, mainly the relievers. You could say it with Sean Murphy and Ozzy too, but if they're trading any players that have money on the books for future years, I think that would be an indication that maybe the Braves are gearing up to spend big in this offseason. Now, obviously, you got to replace what you're trading because they're no longer there for you for the next years. But if they look to kind of clear space for future seasons, could be a sign that they're getting ready to spend big in the offseason. Another one from Calvin Finner. Also, there was a rumor floated the Braves are looking to go big this offseason. They have the money. So could we see a Tucker signing? Doubtful. I think Tucker's probably going to get 35, 40 million a year. I mean, he's been one of the best players in baseball since coming up. He likely can stick in the outfield even longer than a Acuna or a Soto. Not that he's fantastic out there, but I think he's going to get 35 plus million a year. And I can't see the Braves doing that type of contract. So while, again, he'd be at the top of my list, he's at the top of everybody's list. He's going to be the top free agent this upcoming offseason. He's been about as steady as anybody, 886, 993, 884 OPS over the last 3 years with a 280 or higher batting average in all of those seasons. He's getting ready to eclipse another 2020 season, a second in the last 3 years. And last year he didn't get there because he was injured for so long. So, I mean, you're talking about just a guy that's been as steady as possible, a 2020 type of player. Not great range in the outfield, but has good arm. Not a lot of speed, but he does steal some bases for you, at least 20 a year when healthy. So he's going to be a top free agent. He's probably going to get 35 plus million a year over a long deal. So while I would love for the Braves to go all in and spend on him, it's hard for me to see that happening with the way this group normally works in free agency. All right, got a lot more questions to get to on today's episode of Locked On Braves. As always, thank you so much for submitting all of these great questions. We'll get into the rest of them here next. Summer sports are in full swing, and you can get into the action with FanDuel, whether you're watching baseball, got some golf action going on, whatever the case may be. You can make things a little bit more exciting with FanDuel. And right now, our new customers at FanDuel can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. You're into the second half of the season. You're expecting a big Braves comeback. You can get great odds on them right now over at FanDuel. You can use it to keep track of your favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, a fast payout as well. It makes every regular season game feel like must-watch events, whether you're placing a same game parlay or watching the bet ride into the ninth inning. FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action. Also, please make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. And if you're new to FanDuel, again, new customers can bet just $5 and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Well, as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. The guys from MLB Game Night will be back this weekend. That should include our good friend Lindsey Crosby. So go ahead and check that out to get you caught up with the biggest highlights from each and every night. And here on Locked On Braves, you didn't listen to my conversation with CJ Nikowski that posted late on Thursday night, early Friday morning. Make sure you go back and give that a listen. Really just thrilled that CJ was willing to come on the podcast. He is obviously one of the best in the business at what he does and also very knowledgeable about the game, can nerd out on it. I could talk for him with days about some of the stats and everything that he likes to dive into, but was just really pleased to have him on the show and thought he did a great job breaking down the Braves. One part in particular where we asked him about Tim Hires that I thought was very, very insightful. I know a lot of you have questions about how much effect does the hitting coach play in today's game? So go back and give that a listen if you haven't already. But thank you so much to CJ for coming on the show. And again, make sure that you go and give that a listen and leave it a like and a comment. All right, let's jump back into the questions here. This one from AAWX, who says, do you think the league should implement the home run derby swing off in extra innings in regular baseball games? Also, would you make any changes to the current All-Star home run derby days? For example, making the winner of the All-Star game getting home field in the World Series again. So I would not go back to make that a rule. I was okay with it when it happened because I was still naive into thinking that players actually cared about the All-Star game and would put forth some sort of effort. But that's just not the case, nor really should it be. So I don't want to see that again. I'll be honest. I haven't really focused in on an All-Star game in many, many years. And the only reason I kind of did this year is because it was in Atlanta. I'm just not as into it. It's a cool, I'll say this, everything surrounding it is cool. The game itself, I really don't care that much. The home run derby is always cool, and it's always going to be a great event. I'd maybe go back to the way that they did it before, where you just get as many pitches, you get it go by outs instead of a timer. But again, I'm fine with the way the current setup is. As far as the home run derby swing off for an extra innings for regular season baseball games, that feels a little odd to me. But so does the base runner, the ghost runner at second base, or that we have now in extra innings. I'd be curious to see how many games go beyond the 10th inning these days, or maybe even the 11th inning. So if it's something that you wanted to implement, maybe starting in the 12th inning, maybe that would be kind of cool. It would definitely be cool, but it feels very cheesy And the old school part of me, I just don't know that I can get over that. I've come around on the free base runner in extra innings, although I still wish that started in the 11th inning and not the 10th inning. But a home run derby in a regular season game to decide who wins a game, that just doesn't sit well. Caleb Cook from my son Grayson, who is a big Braves fan. Hello, Grayson. Should the Braves continue to play both catchers and trade Ozuna, or should they go ahead and trade Murphy with his recent hot streak? Go Braves. So as I said earlier, and as I'm going to continue to state, as I know this question will come up, I'm not completely opposed to trading Sean Murphy, but it has to be for an overpay. It's got to be for a top prospect. I'm not just giving up Sean Murphy because I have Drake Baldwin. To answer the first question, though, from Grayson, I'm looking to trade Ozuna. Whatever I can do to trade Ozuna. I think it is imperative that they trade Ozuna at this deadline, and here's why. And there's several other questions in here about Ozuna, but I'm going to address this right now. Trading Ozuna, for one, helps you clear the DH spot so that you can play Drake Baldwin more, which you need to do the rest of this season to make sure that he wins Rookie of the Year. It gives you a glimpse of what it could look like in the future with both Drake Baldwin and Sean Murphy in the lineup together. If that's going to be something that works for those guys going forward, or if you need to re-sign Marcell Ozuna in the offseason to bring him back as a full-time DH, or, what more you can do with the DH. Give Ronald a day off in the DH spot and things like that. I think it is an imperative for what you're going to do next season that you trade Marcell Ozuna at this deadline. Here's the problem with that. One, and I think there's another question to this later, but again, I'm going to address it now. It's going to take a particular team to trade for Marcell Ozuna. You're going to have to find a partner that just needs a DH only, and somebody that's only going to sit in your DH spot. He's also going to you're going to have to pay him $6-7 million the rest of the way, unless the Braves are eating some money. Old $16 million this year, so you're halfway through the season, so probably a little bit less than 8, probably something like $6 or $7 million left on his contract by the time the trade deadline comes around. So you got a team that's going to be willing to take on a little bit of money, a team that's just needs a DH only, and on top of all that, even if you find that fit, it has to be a team that Marcell Ozuna is willing to accept a trade to, because he has 10-5 rights. So as much as I think the Braves have to trade Ozuna, it's just not going to be that simple. And if he's there, I feel like you're going to play him. But I feel like the best case scenario for the Braves the rest of the way is to play both Drake Baldwin and Sean Murphy, because you need to get Baldwin the at-bats to try to make sure he wins Rookie of the Year to hopefully get that extra draft pick, and B, to see what the dynamic's going to look like with both of those guys in the lineup. So I hope they can trade Ozuna, and I hope that they can go with Baldwin and Murphy in the lineup the best way. And I just think that's your best lineup right now. Whit Price, would you try to go get Felix Bautista, and what do you think it would take? I think it would take a lot. I mean, I would like to get Felix Bautista. I don't know offhand exactly what his contract status looks like, how many more years of control he has, but obviously he's one of the best relievers. If he is available, he's going to be pretty expensive. Looks like he's controllable through the 2027 season, so 2 more years of control, not making a ton of money. So he is going to cost quite a bit. I mean, probably for the Braves, one of your top pitching prospects, maybe even a J.R. Ritchie. So I don't know if the Braves are going to pay that price, but he would be a very attractive reliever to go get. Another one from Whit, who says, what are some relievers you would trade Ozzy for? I haven't looked that deep into it. We're going to have some full episodes next week, one on, trading Ozuna, one on trading Ozzy, or maybe I'll go into some more specifics. But if I'm trading Ozzy, it's got to be for a reliever with at least 1 year of control. I would love a reliever with at least 2 years of control to give up Ozzy, even though I know how bad he's been. It's still just as painful to give up on Ozzy, especially when he's not making a ton of money to begin with. And if he were to figure it out, again, he's been one of the best second basemen in baseball for a while. So for me, it'd have to be a setup type reliever, dominant type reliever with years of control for me to trade Ozzy, and somebody can be a setup man, potentially a closer. Matt Olson, a burner. Who would be your top 3 upgrades this offseason, player specific? Also, assuming Ozzy doesn't bounce back in the second half, who would you like to see fill in at second base for 2025 outside of the organization? So I already gave you my 3 player specific upgrades, Kyle Tucker, Bo Bichette, and Michael King are the three players. Money's not an option. We're just getting whoever we want. That's who I would go get. As far as second baseman, look, if the Braves hypothetically were to sign Kyle Tucker, and I know you said you wanted external options, I'm moving Jerickson Profar to second base. I know he's not great there, but Ozzy hasn't particularly been great there either. So if I were to somehow sign Kyle Tucker, I'm probably just moving Profar to second. But outside of that, Ha-Seong Kim, if he doesn't accept his $16 million player option, which he might because he really hasn't gotten back this year and had the season that he wanted to reset his market, so he might just pick up that $16 million player option. But if he doesn't, I'd be okay with signing Ha-Seong Kim for a shortstop or second baseman option for the Atlanta Braves. I think he would be a really good fit. Obviously, he has to come back and be healthy. The Rays have an $11.5 million club option on Brandon Lowe, which they're probably going to pick up, but I like him. Luis Arraez is going to be an unrestricted free agent. If you wanted to change the dynamic of this offense and you wanted to change up their identity, Luis Arraez would definitely help in that regard. Those are some of the free agents out there available that I could see being some upgrades at second base. All right, we got a lot more questions to get to on today's episode of Locked On Braves. We'll wrap that up here next. All right, let's jump right back into the questions. We got several more to get to. PJ's Brave says, in your opinion, what does Riley need to do to get back on track, not just this season, but to the trajectory that led to the team giving him a lengthy contract? It's really odd looking at Austin Riley's profile this year and really just the numbers because, they're certainly not great. You're looking at a 274 average. That's not terrible. 14 home runs, in this economy, not terrible. 765 OPS, again, not terrible, but certainly not to the level that you want Austin Riley. So is he just having a down year, or is this the player that he is right now? 2024 obviously got off to the slow start, had the injury early on, but when he came back from that injury, as I noted a lot last year, he was the Austin Riley. He was over at 800 OPS. He looked like that Austin Riley, which is why I thought coming into this year, he was an MVP candidate for me, because when he healthy, he came back from the oblique injury he had last year. He looked like Austin Riley, one of the best hitters in baseball. Then he got hit on the hand, and whether it's just, trying to recover from that coming into the season and just still not feeling right, I don't know. But you look at his percentile rankings on Savant, and, it's pretty similar to what we've seen in the past. It's not that far off. So I don't, other than just pitch recognition and, laying off the slider, it seems like he gets lost, but that's been Riley his whole career. So nothing I really look at in the profile is too far off from where Austin Riley has been in the past. I think it's maybe just a little bit of bad luck, maybe just a little bit of a down season, but I don't think there's too much that he really needs to change to get back to where he was before. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer here, but again, everything that I look at for him, it's not all that different than what we've seen in the past. So I really think it's just a matter of, staying healthy, getting healthy, which has been a bit of a problem right now, and hopefully just getting better results on the good swings that he's putting together. But everything else, statistically looks good. Yeah, you'd like him not to chase as much. You'd like him not to whiff as much and strike out as much. The strikeout rate is definitely something that is different this year that needs to come back down. He's striking out almost 28% of the time this year, where he's been around 24, 25%. So, he definitely needs to drop that down. That's been an issue. Part of that's just been going back to where he struggled early on, not being able to lay off that slider low and away, which really plagued him early in the season. I think has been a problem for him. But outside of that, I don't think he's as far off as some people think from getting back to the Austin Riley that we've seen in the past. John Hayden, rapper, says, when Riley comes back, is it possible for them to move Nacho to second? It's possible. It's very possible. Two things have to happen. One, Ozzy has to continue to be one of the worst hitters in baseball. And two, Nacho has to prove that he can be a productive hitter. So it's possible. I still think it's unlikely. I just don't think they're going to give up on Ozzy like that with as much as he means to the team. Justin Shoemake, with Atlanta more likely not going to the postseason, do you think Atlanta should be calling up some of their almost ready prospects just to see what they can do at the MLB level? I'd like to see what a J.R. Ritchie or Hayden Harris or even Hurston Waldrop can do again. Yes, absolutely. They may give it through the rest of July here with what they have. And then after that, kind of assess where the team is, and they're just completely waving the white flag at that point, because I don't know that the team officially has yet. I think you definitely call up, especially all your bullpen arms, like Caden Harris, maybe even Giancarlo Lara, and just see what they can do to see if they can be part of your bullpen in the future. But I'd love to see a J.R. Ritchie. Only reason I'd say no on J.R. Ritchie is if you think he has a chance to win Rookie of the Year next season. So make sure you hold on to that rookie status. But I would love to see Hurston Waldrop again, see if the mechanic changes that he's made this year have helped him at all at the big league level. Certainly they've had some better results at the minor league level. But yeah, absolutely. I just don't think those changes are really going to happen until after the trade deadline. Ransom says, looking ahead to the next offseason, which 2 free agents do you think the Braves should try to sign? I think they should try to sign Kyle Tucker and Michael King if I'm just getting 2. But again, whether or not they're going to spend the money on those 2 guys, I don't know. But definitely need to get a top-end starter like a Michael King. There's several, Framber Valdez, Dylan Cease. There's some really good starters that are going to be available. I think they need to get at least one of those and a bat for somewhere. Dustin Mounts, with Ozuna, Fletcher, Rysell, and a couple others off the books next season, what does the Braves payroll flexibility look like per the luxury tax threshold? And what guesstimate do you have on what the luxury tax thresholds will be next year? So we know that the threshold next year will be $244 million is what it will be. So we know that's what the luxury tax is going to be next season. As far as where the Braves will be, right now you look at FanGraphs, a roster resource. They have the Braves estimated luxury tax payroll for next year at around 158. That's the wrong number. 149 million. That's not accounting for something like arbitration eligible players. So it's probably going to be, again, guesstimating right now, not having all the figures, somewhere around 175. They're going to have a good chunk of money to spend next year. I think probably over 50 million that they can spend. And that's just getting up to the tax. That's not assuming that they go over the tax next year. So they're going to have a lot of money to spend this upcoming offseason. Jay Baz says, would you trade Bryce Elder? And if so, what would we get for him? I would rather bring up Waldrop or Ritchie that throws 96, 97 and walk a couple than someone throwing 91 that gives up 8 runs a game. Well, you're not getting much for Elder. I mean, most teams are going to view him as a 5th, 6th starter. So you're not getting much there for him. So I don't know what you're expecting to get for Elder, but it's not going to be anything that I think is worth giving up somebody that you just need the depth for. I know you don't love seeing him out there, and I get it. I want to see some of the younger arms too, but I think he at least does give you that depth. Eddie says, we all talk about trading Ozuna to open up the DH spot, but what realistically are spots for him? Are there teams willing to take on a 34-year-old potentially injured DH on a down year? Though if AA can get someone for Ruiz, I guess anything is possible. So I kind of addressed that earlier too. Eddie was the question that I was referring to. It's going to be hard to find a spot for Ozuna. Papachi, with last season's being the exception, was 2023 more of a one in off year, or is it the season that fits the description? Does the fact that they haven't won a playoff series since 21 play a factor? So look, the offense was good before 2023. Yes, 2023 was an outlier. The balls were traveling more that season. It was an outlier for a lot of teams offensively, but the Braves offense was good before then. Now, I do think that they struggled. Their type of offensive approach struggled in the playoffs, and it's why they wanted to make a switch this season at hitting coach to try to change that philosophy. I think that plays into it a little bit. But 2023, it definitely just wasn't a fluke. I mean, that was a good offense playing in a good offensive environment. Elon Musty says, do you think there's any clubhouse tension with how they handled Snit? How have they handled Snit? I don't understand that question. So no, I don't think there's any clubhouse tension around that though. Dave Vesey, any indication how much, if any, the Braves are willing to spend on free agency this offseason? I want Schwarber. So you want somebody else that's just going to take up the DH spot. Look, I would love to have Schwarber. He's a great player. You can get him at the right deal. I'm kind of wanting to get a more fluid DH spot going forward. Judy Chop, and we've talked a lot about what I think the Braves will have to spend this offseason. I think they'll have a lot. Judy Chops, who do you think would be some good options to replace Snit? I keep saying Torey Lovullo from the Diamondbacks. If they were able to rip him away, he's one of my favorite managers in the game. Maybe give David Ross another shot. I think people have kind of moved on from the Mark DeRosa idea, I have too. If you're going to keep it internally, I guess Walt Weiss would be your top option. But I haven't really looked, otherwise as far as who's available and some of the options out there. I don't know where Joe Girardi is right now, if he could be an option. But yeah, I haven't really looked too much into who the candidates could be. We'll definitely talk about that more as we get closer to the end of the season. Nate says, what can the Braves get for trading Ozuna? Who should they be targeting? They're not going to get much for Ozuna. I'm telling you, they're just not. As I said earlier, it's going to be hard just finding a partner to deal him for. And even if you are able to trade him, you're not getting much for him. Last one from Cameron Clements, who says, do you think the Braves will make any big trades with Ozuna, or do you think it will be someone like Montero? I think Iglesias is probably going to get you the biggest return. And even that's not going to be much. I just don't think the Braves have a lot here that they're going to get a massive return for anybody that they trade at this deadline. All right, that's all the questions. Thank you so much for submitting all of those in. Thank you for those here live. Jess Daly, Jeff Barry, Cognac, Surge 46 as well. Jeffrey Humphreys, Everydayer, Kenneth Sellers. Thank you all for joining. Braves Thrills as well. Kenneth said, well, I would move Profar to second. That's only if you were to trade for Kyle Tucker. Because then you got Tucker, Harris, and Acuna in the outfield. And Profar has played second. Not great there, but that'd be the only reason to move him there. All right, that will do it for this episode of the Locked On Braves. Thank you so much for joining today's podcast. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, and leave me a comment down below. Hope you all have a great weekend enjoying some Braves baseball, as baseball is back after the All-Star break. Again, make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you.